Let's talk about the Falkland Islands, or as we Brits like to call them, definitely ours, stop asking. It's a tiny speck of land in the South Atlantic that somehow became the geopolitical equivalent of two toddlers fighting over a Happy Meal toy. And, spoiler alert, we're the toddler that kept the toy. So picture it, the 1700s. Britain is in peak empire grindset mode. Call us Dyson because we're just hoovering up islands. Meanwhile, Spain's out here saying, actually, we discovered this first, which is Spanish for, we vaguely pointed at it on a map once and then immediately lost interest. The Falklands are literally just rocks with sheep on them. But back then, if it wasn't nailed down, we wanted it. Navigation routes, whaling stations, bragging rights, it didn't matter. Britain is like that guy at a yard sale buying VHS tapes just because they're there. But here comes Argentina. Except it wasn't Argentina yet. It was still a Spanish colony called the Viceroyalty of the Rio de la Plata. And they're like, oi, this is ours. And Britain's like, mate, you weren't even a country when we got here. That's like trying to sue your landlord for selling you the house before you were even born. Fast forward to 1833. Britain strolls back in, plants a flag and says, yeah, these are ours now. Don't worry, you can still visit the penguins if you book in advance. And Argentina has been having a Twitter meltdown about it ever since. And I know you're thinking, but they're right next to Argentina. And yes, correct. The islands are like 300 miles off Argentina's coast. Very close, very convenient, and yet still British. Proximity doesn't equal ownership though, does it? By that logic, France owns Wetherspoons because it's closer to Calais down to Scotland. Also, the locals, actual Falkland Islanders, are like 99% British descendants. Their whole thing is sheep farming, drinking tea, and complaining about the weather, or just anything in general. Very British. They sound more like Yorkshire than Buenos Aires. So you can't just rock up and say, surprise, you're now Argentinian. Enter the Falklands War. Ah yes, the 1980s, a magical time of perms, synth music, and Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher doing speedruns of becoming the most divisive woman in British history. She's a lot like Marmite actually. You either hate her or you hate her. Meanwhile, in Argentina, the ruling military junta was failing harder than a group project led by that one guy who never shows up. So, like any failing government, they did what all failing governments do, start a war. The junta was like, we're reclaiming the Malvinas. And Britain was like, sorry, what? The sheep? The islands, that's your big play, but they did it. In April 1982, Argentina invades. They march in, take over the local governor's office, and put their flag up like they just claimed the moon. For a few days, Argentina was buzzing. National pride, viva la patria. The Falklands were trending on whatever counted as Twitter in 1982. Then, Britain woke up. Thatcher basically went, right, deploy the entire navy. Yes, all of it. No, I don't care if it costs £1 billion. I'm not losing to some lads cosplaying as conquistadors. And oh boy, we went over there. We sent 100 ships, 28,000 troops, and probably more tea bags than bullets. For 2 months, the South Atlantic was basically Call of Duty, cold and windy edition. And whilst Argentina thought they had the home field advantage, it doesn't really matter when the away team shows up with aircraft carriers. It's not football, mate. It is war. But anyway, British forces steamrolled through. The most famous battle, Goose Green, which sounds less like a battlefield and more like a petting zoo, but still, a few hundred paratroopers against a few thousand Argentinians, and Britain still won. By June, the Argentine forces surrendered. Thatcher popped champagne, Britain sang Rule Britannia, unironically for the first time in decades, and Argentina's junta collapsed harder than a Jenga tower in an earthquake. But what about continued occupation? Ah yes, the eternal argument. Argentina calls it occupation, Britain calls it self-determination. The difference is that the people who actually live there keep voting, overwhelmingly, to stay British. And when I say mostly, I mean 99.8% in a 2013 referendum. That's not just democracy, that's basically the world's biggest group chat all saying, yeah, we're good thanks. Argentina's response? No, you don't understand. They're brainwashed. Sorry, what? These are sheep farmers, not North Korean hostages. The most brainwashing they get is deciding between PG tips and Yorkshire tea. Look, if you walk into a McDonald's and everyone there says, yes, we're happy eating McNuggets, you don't stand on a chair and yell, no, you're supposed to be eating empanadas. At this point, you're probably all asking the same question. Why does Britain even care about these windswept rocks anyway? And it's a perfectly valid question. But the three main reasons it boils down to: 1 is oil, obviously. Number 2, a military base. Very strategic location in the South Atlantic. Very effective if we ever speedrun World War III. And number 3, pride. We don't win many wars post-1945, so the Falkland Islands is like our shiny Pokemon card. It's proof that, yes, we still can do Imperial cosplay if we really tried. To be fair, Argentina does have a case. The islands are geographically closer to them, they did inherit Spain's old claims, and losing to Britain was embarrassing, like getting ratioed out of your own post. At the end of the day, the Falklands are basically Britain's sheep-infested NFT, useless to anyone, overpriced to maintain, but we'll defend it to the death because it's ours. So yeah, knowing how petty we are as Brits, I wouldn't expect a resolution anytime soon.